What looked like a routine administrative letter to the British Home Secretary was actually a devastating metaphor for a shattered ego and a collapsing commercial empire. In less than 48 hours after a deeply controversial demand for taxpayer funded police protection was leaked to the press, the facade of a peaceful private life in California completely fractured. We are witnessing the execution of a meticulously concealed operation, an aggressive maneuver designed not to heal a fractured family, but to forcefully reinstall an exiled prince into the very institution he spent the last 4 years publicly dismantling. This is the story of Project Thor. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how the Sussex public relations machine has weaponized institutional vulnerability to build a rival court, why the sudden shifts in their public engagements carry a dark psychological truth, and how a shadowy network of political enablers is currently pushing the British monarchy toward a catastrophic point of no return. To truly understand the sheer commercial desperation driving this new campaign, we have to look at the devastating contrast between what was promised and what actually remains. Rewind to the golden era of their departure. They were the most sought-after couple on the planet, riding a wave of global adoration and billion-dollar corporate promises. They were positioned as modern, progressive titans who would conquer Hollywood philanthropy and global media on their own terms, free from the archaic constraints of the palace. But stripped of the royal machinery that curated their image and protected their flaws, the reality of the last few years has been a brutal exposure of a moral contradiction. Hollywood has quietly retreated. Spotify executives have publicly walked away. The grand philanthropic initiatives have frequently dissolved into empty corporate jargon. The undeniable psychological truth is that their only remaining cultural currency is the very family they so publicly attempted to destroy. The private life they fiercely demanded in the United States has morphed into a frantic, highly staged pantomime of royal duty, driven by a staggering realization that without the institution, the brand simply cannot survive. The strategy required to fix this PR disaster could not be executed openly. The British public's reception toward the couple has frozen into an impenetrable wall of absolute indifference. Therefore, the return had to be stealthy, orchestrated through the back doors of the British establishment. The first major rupture in the monarchy's defensive wall occurred in late 2025, during Harry's first private meeting with his father in 19 months at Clarence House. To the untrained eye, it was framed as a fleeting moment of familial reconciliation, a son flying across the Atlantic to comfort his cancer-stricken father. But in the cold light of forensic PR analysis, it was the insertion of a Trojan horse. It was the crucial first step in a coordinated effort that palace insiders and elite journalists have ominously dubbed Project Thor. Project Thor is not a peace treaty. It is a highly calculated, politically backed blueprint to slowly draw Harry and Meghan back into British public life, bypassing the will of the public entirely. This is where the story shifts from a simple family estrangement to a staggering exploitation of a vulnerable monarch. King Charles, an older man battling a severe illness and naturally longing to see his grandchildren, represents the perfect emotional weak point. The Sussex PR machine, which never sleeps, recognized that while the Prince of Wales remains an unyielding fortress, the king is actively being worn down. But the king is not the only piece on the board. The true sinister nature of Project Thor lies in its enablers. A quiet alignment has formed among high-ranking politicians and key institutional figures who view a progressive, reformed royal dynamic as politically advantageous. Suddenly, demands that should have been dismissed are being entertained. Harry's aggressive letter to the Home Secretary, demanding a fresh security risk assessment despite having already lost his legal battle for automatic police protection, was not about safety. It was about optics. It is a desperate psychological need for validation. He requires the flashing lights, the police outriders, and the helicopter escorts not to protect him from a genuine threat, but to project the illusion of supreme importance. It is about forcing the British state to treat him not as a retired celebrity, but as an active vital organ of the crown. This brings us to the events that truly exposed the terrifying scope of their ambition. Small details matter, and a highly coordinated public relations mimicry began to unfold in real time in a move that left royal observers entirely stunned. Prince Harry suddenly published a deeply personal essay in a left-leaning political magazine regarding the complexities of global anti-Semitism. On the surface, it appeared to be a noble intellectual pursuit, but the timing was a smoking gun. The article was forcefully pushed to the public on the exact same day, almost down to the hour, that King Charles was scheduled to make a highly sensitive and deeply emotional visit to a Jewish community in North London. This was not a coincidence. This was an act of deliberate, aggressive overshadowing. By matching the sovereign's exact tone and subject matter on the exact same day, the Sussex machine was sending a clear signal. They were projecting themselves as parallel royals, executing the exact same high-level diplomatic engagements from a distance, effectively blurring the lines between the actual monarch and the exiled son. This strategy of mimicry then escalated into full-blown usurpation by the spring of 2026, with the couple's quasi-royal tour of Australia. The itinerary was a masterpiece of commercial desperation disguised as duty. It featured carefully staged visits to children's hospitals, tightly controlled interactions with veterans, and solemn walks alongside trauma victims. Every camera angle was meticulously pre-approved, and every interaction was timed for maximum emotional extraction. They were operating exactly as working royals do, but without any of the oversight, accountability, or restrictions of the actual crown. They hugged sick children for the cameras, generating a tidal wave of global headlines, while simultaneously laying the groundwork to monetize that exact visibility. It was the ultimate visual humiliation for the institution of the monarchy, watching two people who had loudly rejected royal life now aggressively performing it on a global stage, proving that they intend to retain all the privileges of the crown while refusing to carry any of its weight. But the most dangerous phase of Project Thor was yet to come, and it involves a catastrophic betrayal from inside the palace walls itself. Enter a newly appointed, highly influential royal aide, a smooth political operator celebrated for bridging international diplomatic gaps. Brought in to modernize operations, this aide has quietly become the ultimate instrument of the Sussex agenda, convinced that a public reconciliation is the only way to modernize the monarchy's image. This aide has begun whispering into the ear of a weakened king pushing for a devastating compromise. The plan is no longer just about granting Harry a part-time role or bringing him back for state occasions. Palace insiders have leaked that Harry is actively laying the groundwork for a fully functioning rival court operating directly out of the United Kingdom. He does not want to be a guest in his own country. He wants an entirely separate royal ecosystem, a parallel institution with its own staff, its own charitable engagements, and its own diplomatic footprint, designed specifically to compete directly with the Prince and Princess of Wales. He wants the prestige of the monarchy entirely on his own terms, operating just miles away from the brother he so viciously betrayed. And now the tension has reached a breaking point. Behind the heavy oak doors of the palace, this new aide is currently attempting to orchestrate the unthinkable, forced, closed-door handshake between Prince William and Prince Harry to formally sanction this new arrangement. For William, a man of profound ballast who has drawn an absolute, uncompromising line in the sand to protect his wife and his institution from further psychological warfare, this is the ultimate nightmare. As the king wavers under the immense emotional pressure of his illness and the relentless whispering of his advisors, William has just realized a terrifying truth. The enemy is no longer just shouting from a podcast studio in California. The enemy has successfully infiltrated the palace, and the very foundation of his future kingdom is about to be sold out from underneath him. For the Prince of Wales, the realization that the threat is no longer across the Atlantic, but actively operating within the corridors of his own future kingdom, has forced a profound psychological shift. The closed-door handshake proposed by the newly appointed royal aide was not just a diplomatic miscalculation. It was a fundamental misunderstanding of the permanent rift that now defines this family. To the media, this is frequently spun as a tragic sibling rivalry that requires nothing more than an apology and a mediator. But behind the walls of Adelaide Cottage, William and Catherine understand a much darker reality. You cannot therapize a commercial threat. There is no middle ground, no familial compromise to be reached with a public relations machine that views every private olive branch as content for a future memoir or a streaming documentary. The psychological barrier that the Waleses have erected is not born of stubbornness or petty vindictiveness. It is a necessary, impenetrable defense mechanism against staggering exploitation. The strategy deployed by William and Catherine is one of absolute suffocating silence. While the Sussex camp continuously leaks narratives of longing, reconciliation, and demands for apologies, the Waleses offer nothing. No rebuttals, no off-the-record briefings, no emotional reactions. In the world of high-stakes public relations, silence is the ultimate weapon against a narcissist. It deprives the aggressor of the friction they desperately need to stay relevant. Every time Harry and Meghan attempt to launch a new narrative, it simply hits the cold, unyielding wall of William's restraint. This silence has forced the Sussex PR machine to become increasingly frantic, leading to subtle public shifts that carry devastating deeper meanings. If we look closely at the subtle signals over the past several months, the commercial desperation becomes entirely undeniable. Consider the quiet rebranding of their online presence. The grand independent philanthropic moniker of Archewell, which was supposed to define their new global supremacy, was quietly overshadowed by a sudden aggressive pivot back to the Sussex title. Their website, their branding, their public introductions, everything reverted to the very royal designations they claimed were toxic and oppressive. This was not a rebrand, it was a capitulation. It was a silent admission to the corporate world that their independent lifestyle brands, their exclusive podcast deals, and their attempts to conquer Hollywood purely on their own merit had catastrophically failed. The undeniable psychological truth is that without the prefix of a royal title, their commercial value evaporates. This is the very reason why the quasi-royal tours the demands for taxpayer-funded security and the perfectly timed publication of articles on high-profile diplomatic issues are happening right now. They are aggressively trying to mimic the optics of working royals because the illusion of royal proximity is the only product they have left to sell. When Meghan Markle appeared at a high-end summit to discuss the dangers of social media for children, just days after strategically placing her own daughter's image into the public domain, the public saw through the moral contradiction immediately. It is a relentless cycle of weaponizing victimhood while simultaneously demanding absolute public adoration. The audience is exhausted. The initial wave of empathy that the world felt for a couple claiming to escape an oppressive institution has violently, completely reversed. What the public sees now is an empire built on grievances, managed by two people who demand the ultimate privileges of extreme wealth and status, while refusing to accept the quiet dignity of the private life they begged for. This story resonates so deeply with millions of viewers because it transcends the specifics of the British monarchy. It touches on universal, deeply human themes of ultimate betrayal, the collapse of trust, and the painful reality of toxic family dynamics. Almost everyone knows what it feels like to draw a boundary to protect their own peace against someone who refuses to respect it. We are watching this deeply relatable human struggle play out on a billionaire scale under the unforgiving glare of the global media. It is a modern tragedy about an exiled prince who traded a historic legacy of service for a temporary moment of celebrity, only to realize that celebrity is fleeting, but exile is permanent. As we look toward the future, the stakes have never been higher. The British monarchy is currently navigating a period of profound fragility, the king dealing with the realities of his health and the emotional burden of his estranged son remains caught in the crossfire. The shadowy network of political enablers and ambitious aides driving Project Thor will not stop. They will continue to push for a rival court. They will continue to try and force a reconciliation that William fundamentally rejects. The war on several fronts is only going to escalate, moving from subtle public relations maneuvers to direct challenges against the authority of the crown. But as the shadow court attempts to assemble itself, relying on the quiet backing of establishment figures and the relentless noise of California PR, Prince William stands resolute. He is no longer just a brother mourning the loss of a sibling. He is a king in waiting, defending the gates of an institution that has survived for 1,000 years. The ultimate test of his reign will not begin when the crown is placed on his head. It has already begun. The battle lines are drawn, the illusions have been shattered, and the future of the royal family now depends entirely on whether William can hold the line against the very blood that betrayed him. Thank you for exploring the deeper realities of this story with me today. The landscape of this royal divide is shifting rapidly, and we will continue to analyze the truth behind the headlines. If you found this breakdown insightful, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters. Until next time, stay observant, and I will see you in the next video.